Welcome. You're listening to the Keeping Ashland Healthy podcast, a podcast production of the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Ashland County, Ohio. Thanks for joining us. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Dr. Ashley and the Boss. And as you know, we have been going through a series of getting to know the board members here in Ashland County. And with us in studio, that's the Mental Health and Recovery Board studios on 1095, is Mr. Tom Gaus. Welcome to the studio, Mr. Tom Gaus.
Thank you.
And Dr. Ashley, I've been looking forward to this one
Me too.
because Tom, I didn't give him any time limit, so we could be here for an hour. But Mr. Gaus is one of our longest serving board members, and I think as we go through our questions, I think our audience will be fascinated with his answers because Tom has been a valuable and long-time member of the Mental Health and Recovery Board, and I'm just so pleased that he joined us in studio today. So, Tom, these questions, they're similar questions that we've asked the other board members that have gone before you. We like to start off with just asking, since Ashland County residency is a requirement to be on the board, we ask folks how long they've been living in Ashland County.
Well, Cheryl and I moved to Ashland County in 1972 when I was hired by Mapleton as the head basketball coach and assistant principal and teacher.
Wow, 1972. So this, Ashley, I think this was before you were born.
Yep.
Yes,
That's
yes.
before I was
Okay,
born.
okay, all right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so up in the Mapleton district, and you've been here ever since. So that is going on, if I'm doing the math in my head, that's like 50-some years, 51, 52.
Here in Ashland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
Right? So I raise attention to that because I think you can tell listeners, Mr. Gaus has been in this community for a long time, so he knows a lot about some of the needs and the trends that have occurred over those years. And you probably have seen a few changes in your time here in the county, let alone serving on the board, which is kind of my second question. How long have you been involved with this board?
Well, I would say there was a gal that came to me. She was moving to Florida, and she came to me and she said, "Would you like to be on the Mental Health and Recovery Board?" And I said, "I don't even know what that board does.
Sure.
What does it do?" And so she told me about it and then introduced me to the then director, Janet Labus.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really kind of fascinated with the idea. And so I was able to join the board at that time.
Right. And we were trying to do some math, but we think it's fair to say you've probably been on the board or with the board for 25 years plus, probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a quarter of a century.
Yeah. See how quick she is?
Impressive.
That's why she's
Now,
the doctor.
I don't know why you guys keep bringing up
Oh,
years and years and age and years all the time.
You're so wise. We're just lucky to have you on here.
That's
This is
right.
awesome.
That's a good recovery, Dr. Ashley. So given, Tom, that there are so many other things you can do with your time, tell us a little bit about your motivation. You started to touch on it. What was your motivation to serve, and not only to start, but to continue to serve for so long? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I also taught psychology at the high school level.
Okay.
And so I was interested in mental health to begin with. And it took me probably 5 years to learn the system, to learn the acronyms and the synonyms and all of that nonsense that you have to learn.
Yes.
But it was just a need that the county needed, and not a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
And so, and then just the idea of rubbing shoulders with other good people that were on the board.
Sure. Yeah. And one of my favorite things is when Tom goes out to Mental Health and Recovery Board events or trainings that we have, or even with some of our newer board members, how many folks come up to him and, Tom was their principal or their teacher. That's one of the advantages when you stick in a county for a long period of time, as you have, like you said, 50-some years living here, you get to know. And again, Ashland's not that big, so you get to know a lot of folks, and everybody knows Tom.
Yeah, that's so cool. I wonder, too, like, your connection to the education system and the mental health system now. Like, I think that probably has been an interesting combination.
Well, I think I was on the board when we decided to do the liaison program,
Yeah.
which has just been awesome. And because I can remember saying at a board meeting that if the board doesn't pay for it fully, then I'm not for it.
Oh.
Because I knew at that time the schools could not possibly pay for the services. And I think at this point in time, I think we still do pay for a good majority of the liaisons. But working in the schools, the liaisons have been, they just save kids. Like, they do things that teachers and principals and guidance counselors cannot possibly do.
Yeah.
They don't have the time, nor do they have the resources.
Right.
And I've just seen episode after episode of kids being helped by the liaison program.
No, and I'm glad you raised that, Dr. Ashley, because Tom, having that expertise in education and experience when the board was considering the school community liaison program, I think your voice was really, and your perspective was really valuable, because that program was crafted from the very beginning so wisely. It really took off and has sustained itself over 20-some years, that program alone, and has continued to be impactful in I think our educational professionals. I mean, it's one of the reasons our levies tend to pass. Folks know that program. They've been helped by it. So many families and young people. It's why I think folks respond so positively with our levy requests. And we appreciate Tom being there at the ground floor before there was a liaison program. Yeah. It took folks with that perspective to kind of craft it and shape it so that it would be successful, which it has been.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've worked all over the state, and I've never seen a program like that before. It's really unique and special, I think. One more question for you here. Could you tell us more about your specific role on the board and maybe what that looks like, Tom?
Well, I'm just a regular old board member at this point in time, and board members refer to me, do you remember, and David's always bringing up, Tom, I'm keeping this short, and there's only one page, because when I came on the board, it was laborious at times listening to directors' reports for 45 minutes when we could have got it done in 20 minutes. And so David's been very good about getting that done. But I served as president a few years and vice president, was on the executive council. But it's time for young people to take over that role. And so I'm just kind of a board member that I can bring up archives from time to time.
I love that. And that's so important.
Yeah. It is. It is. It's nice to have folks that have been with us for so long, because Tom really can act and has acted as a mentor, I think, and inspirations with some of our younger members who, again, remember what you said at the very onset of the program. You said when somebody first approached you, you said, what is that board? Didn't even know it exists. So there still are a lot of people in the county that don't know. And even though they're willing to serve, they still need a whole lot of education at the beginning. It helps to have somebody like you, Tom, that's been here and it's willing to give back.
Yeah, that's great. So kind of a fun question for you, Tom. It's a little change up here. Could you tell us about the best gift that you've ever received and maybe why it was the best?
That is such a hard question, because I've been so blessed just being in Ashland County, doing the things that I was able to do, being on the boards, being on the ACA board, in a long time, even being on the YMCA Board of Trustees. And so I think the biggest gift is probably just being here in Ashland County. It's a great place to raise kids. Mm-hmm. It's a great place. And Matt Miller obviously is doing a great job doing all the things he's doing. So, if you want a material gift, I don't have one. It's just more of a moral gift that I've been given over the years.
Absolutely. That's a great answer.
Yep.
Didn't have to be material at all. That's great. And one more fun one before David takes back over here. If money were no object and you could go back in time and do anything you wanted with your life, what would that be?
I would, I don't want to go back too far, but I think I would make sure that the GED program is funded in Ashland County to the fullest. And by that I mean several years ago we had the GED program in Ashland. It was run through the Career Center, and in the state, in their infinite wisdom, decided to do away with it in Ashland County and separate it to Mansfield City Schools, which has been a disaster. And so I don't know how many kids are, it's not many, but we were averaging 22 to 28 kids a year going through the GED program, getting their GED, and then going on and doing great things in life. And I don't think they're even close to doing that now with Mansfield City Schools being in charge. So if I had a lot of money, I would fund that program to the top.
Yep. Yeah, I remember when Tom was involved with that, how passionate he still is about that program. And again, it goes back to your education roots. I think, Tom, at some level, I don't know when it was, if you were a young person, but at some point in your life, the idea of education must have dawned on you. This is critical, and you want as many people as possible to get the highest and the best quality education they can get. That just seems like that's been a thread throughout your life and your career, regardless of what you're doing. You understand the value of education.
Well, I wanted to be a doctor at first.
Yeah.
And one semester I was taking embryology, genetics, and organic chemistry, and I could not keep up with the smart kids.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
So I decided to be a teacher.
Yeah. Well, if you can't teach is what I've been told.
Right.
That's right. That's what they say. Well, no, those are good responses. But yeah, ever since I've known you, education is, and again, you've always been passionate, and it opens up doors. And some of the young people in the GED program, I recall, sometimes they were the first ones in there. Same thing with ACA, right? Sometimes the first one in their family to graduate and to go on, and you can change the whole arc of the individual and a family. When the education is there. So.
Yeah, for me, I'm the first person to go to college in my family. And I think you can see how hard that can be with not having family members who have gone through the process. To do that on your own is very hard. And so I think it's important, that work.
Yeah. And this one might be challenging, my next question, because you've been with the board for so long, but you've seen a lot of different types of work that the board has done over the years. But what work of the board do you think most positively impacts Ashland County? I think I know your answer, but you might surprise me. So what work, a program or a service that the board is involved with, do you think most positively impacts the county?
Well, I think the liaison program is number one because it affects so many kids. And I mean, I can tell you story after story of kids being helped by liaisons, both at Hillsdale when I was a principal there and both at Mapleton when I was a principal there. So without a doubt, the liaison program is number one. I don't even know if I have a number two, other than I would wish that we could do more with the equine program. And this is kind of a joke, but I always ask David, when can we buy 6 more horses?
Yep. Our equine program, though, we have tried to grow that. It's one of those things where not everybody benefits from traditional go into an office, sit down, and do talk therapy. So whether it's young people, and we've started to branch out even with our veterans, first responders, other adults who getting out there with the horses in a different environment, in a different way, that's what they need, and that's what makes the difference. They might do some of those other things as well, but the equine has been positive, and I wish we had the money to buy another stable full of horses. But I don't know if that's coming.
We have to ask Patty if it's in the budget.
Right, we'll have to ask our finance person, right? Tom, we're getting towards the end. Again, we're speaking with Tom Gaus, who's a long-term member of the Mental Health and Recovery Board. He said he's just a board member. Yeah, he served in all the different officer positions over the years, but right now he is quote-unquote just a board member. But what do you want our listeners to know as we end up here? Just any thoughts about what you'd like the listeners to know about the work of the board?
Well, the board has come a long ways over the years, especially with the website, the internet, and I don't think there's any reason why somebody out there can't get on our website, learn about it, realize all of the opportunities that may be available to them. I just think with communications being so open now that, and it doesn't seem to be. It doesn't seem to be something in the terms of, I don't want anybody to know about what's going on.
Like
in
the stigma, the
stigma type. And I think we're getting over the stigma. I hope we are, and I just I just think that there's a ton of available programs that the Mental Health and Recovery Board are offering the people of Ashland County.
Yep, I agree. And just please, Dr. Ashley, before we sign off, anything else for the program today?
Yeah, I just want to thank Tom
Yeah.
for joining us. It's been
Thank you.
really great, and learning about all the work that you've done has been awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
And there you have another episode of Keeping Ashland Healthy with Dr. Ashley and the boss. For listening to another episode of the Keeping Ashland Healthy podcast. The podcast is a production of the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Ashland County, Ohio. You can reach the board by calling 419-281-3139. Please remember that the board funds a local 24/7 crisis line through Appleseed Community Mental Health Center. It can be reached by calling 419-289-6111. That's 419-289-6111. Until next time, please join us in Keeping Ashland Healthy.